Welcome to The Pack, your gateway to the world of Patricia Briggs and the Mercyverse, where shifters, vamps, and fae rule. Magic hums just beneath the surface, and danger is always one heartbeat away. Now, let's run with the pack. Here are your hosts.
Welcome back to the July edition of the Pack Podcast. I am Greg Martin, and somebody who's laughing in the background.
That's Linda.
I'm Linda. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Linda. Say hi, Hasna.
Hi, Hester.
Hi, Hasna. What are you laughing about, Linda?
I don't know. You're just a trooper. We're rocking and rolling there, brother.
Well, you know, we'll eventually get there. I hit the record button, and then it was about 5 minutes later that I think we finally got the music going here. So, you know, it's always something.
Yeah, we're having technical difficulties starting the podcast today, so...
Yeah, well, and I think I'm the biggest technical difficulty.
That's all good.
That's okay, no worries.
Yeah. Hey, we've got a lot of things happening in July, and in fact, I'm trying to make a whole bunch of notes here, and we're still into the 20th anniversary of Mercy and the Mercyverse. I did want to poke everybody and say the after chat for this episode will wind up being next Sunday, July 12th at 10 a.m. I think we're still on for that. And if you haven't jumped into Patreon at this point in time, be sure and drop over onto the Patreon side of things and check things out. And we're always doing some writing up some little blogs, and there's always some fun things happening over there. And you can join if you want. And, you know, we'd appreciate that. Appreciate that very much. What's been going on with you guys? Linda, what's happening in the Pacific Northwest?
You know, just beautiful. It's beautiful kicking into the summer, so.
Yeah. How about things in London town there, Hasna?
Oh, the weather, like, the other day, it was like, oh, thunderstorm, sun. Yeah, that's, like, typical.
That's pretty typical, though, for London. Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I know we had a really great time last month with Lorelei King, and we've got some more specials on the way, some more special guests and things that we want to bring onto the show. But you guys were talking here a while back. We did the episode in regards to the pack hierarchy, and one of you, I think it was Linda, said something about we should talk about vampires, and I'm always up for a conversation about vampires. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk a little about vampire history for this show, and I realize that I have the incomplete notes here in front of me, so I'm going to grab my other notes here. Patty's vampires are not the sparkly kind.
No.
How would you guys describe Patty's vampires?
Well, I think before they are trying to kind of whitewash their history, they're pretty bloody and gory, like a lot more like gruesome than they are right now. Like back in the day, where they were just, awash in blood and victims.
Yeah.
So, but
they're kind of like the Borgia, the Borgia meets the Mafia or the Cray twins. Oh God, I would love to see the Eastern gangster vampire scene. That would be amazing. Because that would be so fitting. I could see like the Cray twins being vampires.
Well, it is kind of a mob. So
yeah.
When you consider Bonerata, I mean, he's a mob boss, right?
And then you've got the Renaissance, the internal politics and the plans upon plans and political intrigue, and it's all twisty and nasty as well. It's very nasty.
So, Stefan aside, Do you guys have a favorite vampire?
Wolf.
Wolf, yeah.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
He is so... Yeah.
Yes, I love Wolf.
Wolf creeps me out.
I love it.
Yes, because he's so unexpected. He does things with...
I love, because he actually was the scariest vampire to me, like in Bloodbound. Like, he freaked me out. But I've come to enjoy his quirky, delightful psychoticness.
And he's hilarious. He is so funny. He's so funny, and he's psychotic, but it's so psychotic and funny at the same time. It's really good.
Well, I think that's what scares me is the psychoses of the whole thing.
Yeah, and now we just don't know whose side he's going to be on, like where he's going to fall, right? Yeah. So that's interesting to me.
He's a wild card. In many ways, he's like Coyote. Like, I'm going to do this and see what happens. And like, it depends on how I feel. Like, if I'm going to help you or hinder you.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have a favorite, Greg?
I wouldn't say Wolf, okay, because again, Wolf tends to creep me out. I don't know that I have a favorite. But the one that intrigues me the most, and this is going to sound, you guys might not get this, it's Marcelia. Because of the fact that she's kind of like this tragic figure that is, while she's the head of the Seethe, she's this very tragic figure. She's completely lost her humanity. And I'm again, me personally, and Linda, you may disagree with me like you always do. I feel like because of Mercy, she's slowly getting some of that humanity back, and that intrigues me. Thoughts?
I don't know yet. So
because I think definitely in the early books, she is this lost, tragic character.
Yeah.
And then as she regains more, I think the antagonism that she and Mercy have is part of that factor, but I think maybe more due to Adam, and working with Adam is bringing her more back into like a person, like a teammate. Maybe.
Because Adam's honourable. You could trust Adam. Like, Adam's up front, and what you see is what you get with Adam. And she can really trust that, because she's dealt with untrustworthy allies and friends, and it's always like, I'll have to do this to protect myself. So she ends up backstabbing the people that she loves, like with Stefan, in order to weed out the traitors in her Seethe. But at the same time, I think there is a hardcore and cold ambition with her, and I think she's starting to wake up to the fact, because I don't think she trusts, well, obviously she doesn't trust Bonarotta, but I don't think she actually respects him anymore.
No.
And fears him.
I don't think Marcelia and Mercy will ever lose that antagonism between the two of them.
I always see them. Yeah.
It's Stefan. If Stefan wasn't in the picture, I think they could be actually friends, but I think that's gonna crop up in the future in some ways, because Stefan is obviously in love with Mercy, and I think his loyalty is towards Mercy, and I think Marcelia knows that deep down, but she doesn't want to admit it, because then she sees Mercy as a threat, even though nothing's ever going to happen between her and Stefan. It's there.
Okay. I think the one thing that, I'm sad that Andre was killed so soon. Because just learning more about him in Soul Taken, where it was like Wolf and Marcelia, Stefan and Andre, it was just kind of, the Four Musketeers kind of, being vampires, living the life.
Yeah. Backstabbing each other,
Yeah. The whole hierarchy of vampires, fascinates me. And now, am I remembering it correct? Did Wolf make Bonorata?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. And that throws everything into a little bit of a twist in of itself. I mean, Wolf, who's this psychotic, who knows what the wizard boy is going to do, with Bonorata. And now that Bonorata is coming into the Pacific Northwest, into Seattle, into basically the backyard, I get the feeling that maybe there's going to be a storyline there.
Yeah, well, I think that because when you're bound to a vampire, like, Bonorata, basically Wolf was his master, right? So he had to destroy him in order to gain hierarchy over him.
And also to break the ties that he could control him as well, so he had to break him down.
But now I'm wondering that now Wolf has come more back to himself. Are we going to see that struggle with Bonorata now that Wolf is more powerful, right? Is that something that we're going to see in the future, where because you have those ties to the master vampire who created you, who bound you, are we going to see Wolf exploit that in the future, right?
Do we know who made Wolf?
We don't know.
No. See,
he's a mystery. That's why we love him.
Yeah, he was like an experiment, and I think because he has all these different supernatural elements, like he's a wizard, obviously a vampire, and he's got like implied part fae elements. So he's a hodgepodge of everything, and I think that's partly maybe the reason why he is now.
See, to me, he has the potential to be a much scarier vampire than Bonorata is.
Yeah,
I totally. Bonorata is, it's very kind of a physical, brutish sort of control that he wants to exert over people.
He's a bully.
I find Wolf to be very subtle in his...
very schemy.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Bonorata is more, I'm going to, it's a bull in a china shop kind of attitude.
Mm-hmm.
I think because Bonorata twisted him, he warped him, even though he's kind of like gotten out of that kind of the control that Bonorata has set up on him. He's never going to be the person that he appeared in the flashbacks in Soul Taken. And
Stefan will never be Stefan from Moon Called.
Yeah.
We'll never get that Stefan back to us.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things that have happened to him since then. Yeah. So when we return to him next in the books, he's going to be a different character, right?
And that line, what book was it? Where Stefan goes to Mercy, be afraid. I think it was Soul Taken.
Soul Taken, yeah.
Yeah, the end of Soul Taken, and he goes, be afraid. And he's definitely referring to, I think, to Wolf. Not, And I think Stefan must have seen something in him where it's like, oh, crap. We've unleashed something that's very dangerous.
Yeah, was it better for everyone for Wolf to stay broken?
Well, can you imagine? Well, think of it this way.
I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, think of it this way. If Wolf has the capability that he had before he was broken by Bonorata, but has the psycho elements where he's like the wild card now, that's a really crazy combination. That's, and Bonorata, in a way, I think has brought down his own downfall because he's always assumed that he can control Wolf. He feels like I'm the puppet master now. You're not. You're the puppet. Well, before, like, I was your servant, kind of thing. That kind of like that dynamic that he had, and I think now that's out the window. And I don't think Bonorata realizes that. And I think Stefan senses that Wolf is going to use Mercy in the intricate game to get back at Bonorata. That's why I think he said be afraid, to warn her.
So I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, think of it this way. If Wolf has the capability that he had before he was broken by Bonorata, but has the psycho elements where he's like the wild card now, that's,
Yeah, yeah. We've danced around it. Let's talk about Stefan at this point.
Oh, Stefan.
Obviously, yeah. The sort of love lost, always there, but never quite. Stefan is such an intriguing character. I mean, his love of Scooby-Doo just immediately had me. And having a van painted like the Mystery Machine, that grabbed me right there.
Mm-hmm. I love him. He's such a great character, but he needs a break. I feel sorry for him because him and Ben have gone through the ringer.
Yes, yeah,
and I do feel like he needs a break. And I know Patty has said that he will get there, but he's going to go through some things. But I do feel for him because I feel like he's alone right now. Even Mercy is kind of tentative towards him, and I think he just needs a really good friend.
You know, it's one of those things. What you said, Hasna, about she's tentative. We all have good friends, and we all feel like we know them inside and out until something takes them towards an edge, towards that bit of madness. And at that point in time, I think it's important for us to realize that, there needs to be some space. And I think that's where she is with Stefan at this point, is she understands that if she pushes too hard, she's going to lose him completely.
To me, yeah. I mean, Stefan is a Renaissance soldier. Yeah. He sees romance in a different way.
Yeah.
I really don't see him desperately in love with Mercy. I see him love her, but in that romantic, idealized way that he doesn't. She brings humanity to him in a way that he wants humanity, right?
Yeah, I said this before, like it's a courtly love. It's like a love from afar. That in the knights in shining armor, like I will serve you, my lady, kind of thing. And
I think that's confusing him. I think, I don't see that Mercy understands that, but I don't know if he understands that either. And it's confusing him thinking that he's really in love with her.
Because he's touched on to humanity. She's grounding him. And because she's an example of someone that, she will defend you. She'll, she cares for people. She's kind. She's basically like almost like an old school kind of hero. She's got that, and I think he yearns for that. Like he said, he's from that era where it's idealized, and I think he sees that in her, and it's like I want to regain that because I'm now a creature of darkness.
Yeah, I mean, like there's from a chat that Patty did decades ago, like 2007. Yeah. But he's like Stefan loves Mercy, but he doesn't really understand her.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where Adam understands Mercy very well.
Well, sure.
And I was going to say, it's the problem that Mercy has about being tentative is not so much about that, because I think she's kind of like she's like, I'm going to ignore that he has feelings for me. Like she knows deep down it's there. She's not stupid, so she's like kind of ignoring it. It's the blood bond that's freaking her out because of her issues.
It's the control issue.
Yeah, it's the control issues, and it's that. To him, it's the other thing. To her, it's the blood bond, and it's like we could talk about hierarchies. So you've got like the master vampires with the other vampires, and then you've got the vampires with their sheep. It's kind of like a really screwed up hierarchy.
But then I feel badly for Stefan because of Marsilia's betrayal to him. Yeah, right, because that's destroyed him the most. Yeah. Because he spent so many centuries protecting her, and then for her to just blindly, use him as a pawn, I think was upsetting.
Yeah, and he cares for his people because he, like if they got an illness or if they have issues or being homeless or something like that, he's actually helping them getting out of a bad situation. So it like he does get something out of it, but at the same time he is helping them because otherwise they'll be lost or dead. And I think there's only like a handful of vampire examples where they kind of like have some kind of humanity, while the others are just like really screwed up, cold-blooded predators. So it's really interesting to the ones who see humans as family in a way. Like there's an example I think in Silence Fallen where Mercy realizes that the vampires actually care for their humans because you always assume that
a lot with Elena, Elena Gray and her cops in Chicago,
because they're like family. So it's not always the case where that freaky scene where Wolf climbs out the stairs and he treats his humans like cattle basically, and he doesn't care.
Yeah, but realistically, that's the majority of vampires.
Yeah. But it's interesting to note where the ones who've got some kind of humanity are more grounded. So like Stefan, Elena, even Thomas, while the others are just like, you do not want to be near them.
Yeah, and it's interesting how they revert back to the clothing style of when they were made. So they're kind of stuck in that time period.
Hey, I still prefer bell bottoms and t-shirts. Come on, that's my thing. It's they kind of look a little silly these days on this old guy, but it's what it is. Do you guys think that there is any kind of a reconciliation that may take place at some point between Marsilia and Stefan?
I think that if anyone is going to, Stefan will in the end have to forgive her, and I don't know if he can do that. Yeah, he's put it past to get work done, but they'll never get back to what they were prior to.
That trust is gone. Like, and she did it in a really kind of heartless,
the cruelest way that she could.
Yeah. She didn't have to do that, but she did. And that's
do we ever see a time where Stefan becomes the master vampire of the Columbia Basin? He usurps Marsilia.
Do you know what?
That's in the back of... Yeah.
Yeah. This is my theory. I think Marsilia will go after Bonarata, and I think she takes his position, and he takes over the Columbia Basin pack. Not the Columbia Basin area.
Not
the pack, sorry. But yeah, that's my theory.
You think Marsilia's going to go back to Bonarata?
No, she'll go after Bonarata because
she'll take his position. I think in the end, if Bonarata is killed, because he's basically controls Europe.
Yeah.
Right.
And when it comes down to it, I mean, he's like the Maroc of vampires.
Yeah.
Right.
So, his, in the end, they all kind of defer to what he chooses for them. So I think if Marsilia takes that over, then Stefan will slide in, I think, and it'll be a very different relationship.
Yeah.
Oh,
because I think he'll choose vampire, like people who become vampires, because a lot of the sheep become vampires. So he'll make sure the ones he'll turn are more human, because that's another thing. The vampires that they've chosen, the sheep, I'm pretty sure many of them kind of like lean towards a more predatory way kind of thing. So that's the question, like, what kind of humans become a vampire? Do you lose humanity, or do you try and just retain some of it? Like, Elena and Thomas are good examples of that. So it's not always the case, I think.
Yeah, but being a vampire then to being one now, I think, is a very different animal. Now, like, they're not out to the public yet, like werewolves are, and I kind of see that as being the future, like a future kind of a book for them to
Yeah, that would add. Yeah, that would add fuel to the fire with the anti supernatural faction with the humans. That would be, because I think vampires are more frightening than the Fae or even the werewolves for humans, I think.
Yeah, because I guess you just don't realize because you're actually or dead.
Yeah, and I think
you're the living dead.
Yeah,
come
and
on.
It's pretty much like an open secret, I think, to the authorities that vampires exist. So I think if they know about witches, they're going to probably wonder about.
I mean, like the people in the know, they know that vampires exist, but your regular Joe is in the dark until he gets bitten.
But I'm going to revert back to my point about Marsilia. You know, when you said that she's lost respect to Bonarotta towards the end of Silence Fallen. Before he was a figure of fear, he exiled her to the Tri-Cities. It put her into a funk. You know, she was in, you know, and then she woke up and then she realized, this is not the man that I remember. This is, because you got to remember, Bonarotta has his flaws as well. Like, he is an addict. He was addicted to werewolf blood. That is someone who has a weakness. And I think that's why she kind of like messed with him, because she cared about him. And then she sees him again, and the whole situation with Silence Fallen and with the aftermath of Salt. That I think that's completely kind of like, I think she's realized it deep down. I don't want you to mess with me anymore. And I think she will go after him. And maybe she's realized this with Wolf. I just kind of like thought about this now. And maybe that's why Stefan goes, be afraid.
Yeah, well, I think the next vampire book is going to be very interesting. Yeah. The way things end up falling. So...
yeah,
well, it's kind of coming to a head between them and the Hierarchies with like Seattle. Something's brewing there.
I guess time will tell, won't it?
Yeah,
time will tell.
Time will tell. One of the we're bumping up against our time here. I knew this was going to be a fun one to talk about. One of the things that when Patty writes these, and she discusses the fact the undead, and you were talking about humanity or the lack thereof of humanity, when she writes about, you know, the characters that, they forget to breathe, or, you know, that kind of thing. It just always kind of freaks me out when I think about that. You know, somebody standing next to you, do you pay attention to the fact that they're not breathing?
if I notice that, I'll zoom like 100 miles an hour out of the way. Sorry, that's like non-breathing person. No.
Yeah. I just love the interplay that Patty has given us in this incredible world of all these characters, and not in the Twilighty sort of sense, you know, of the glowy vampires and the teen angst and all that kind of thing. This is real humanity stuff going on here.
But I think that it would be interesting if we ever get a story, a flashback of how the Seeth, like,
I love that
actually
word, sorry.
made it in the Tri-Cities when they were exiled there. Because, you know, they need prey to survive. So it's like how, like, they're in the middle of the desert, really.
Yeah, well, they're good at surviving. I mean, like, they are like kind of like acting like the mafia and like bullying other lesser known other supernatural beings, and like basically taking money off them, you know, and they're preying on everything. Like they're preying on their own, they're preying on humans, and they're preying on other supernatural beings that are deemed weaker than them.
Not walkers.
Yeah.
No.
Definitely. All right, we are coming up to our time here to end this incredible conversation. I want to remind everybody that the after chat is scheduled for Sunday, July 12th at 10 a.m. If you have thoughts about all this stuff that we've talked about, and I know you do, you get on Patreon, you get on one of the socials, and you let us know. You tell us what you think. and like Linda does me all the time.
Ouch.
Ouch. Yeah, somebody's got to keep me in check every once in a while. Check out Patreon if you want to get involved a little deeper with things. We can definitely say hi over there. We just did a drawing here last month, and I think so it'll be another couple of months. Is there something else going on? Was there something else going on here for the July?
We've got the 20th anniversary read-along book club. It's going to be posted on every kind of like social media platform. So we did like Moon Called last month, and Bloodbound. I think, considering when this is going to be scheduled, either now or a couple of weeks ago, depending. We're just kind of figuring out schedule. So yeah. So we would like to celebrate it's 20 years of the Mercyverse, which is like, I still can't get over that.
Yeah, and always check Patty's website, because we're still doing giveaways there.
Yes.
So www.patriciabriggs.com, so you can check that out.
There you go. All right, guys. I appreciate all the conversation and the insight. And Linda, as always, a pleasure.
Yes, as always.
As always. Asna, stay dry.
Bye.
The shadows are stirring, and our time together has drawn to a close, at least for now. But the pack is never far away. When the moon rises again, we'll be here waiting. Thanks for running with the pack. The Pack Podcast is a Grail Productions show. Copyright 2026. Hierarchies Incorporated. All rights reserved.